Morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in time and space. Welcome to Just the Word TV, and thank you for joining our daily morning devotion. This channel is built on one mission to help you hear what God actually said, not tradition, just the Word. So, we are moving forward in our new series, Prayer and Worship Maintaining Alignment. Um, Within our first devotion in this series, we laid the groundwork talking about how prayer is our foundational access to God. And then we explored worship, not as a genre of music, but as a posture of our hearts. We said that through the fruit of the Spirit, the fire of God's character has been lit within us. Prayer and worship are the spiritual disciplines, the holy habits that help us maintain and stoke that flame. So now we're going to add a third element to it. And today, we're going on and off worship, prayer, worship, prayer. But before we move forward in prayer, there's that third element that we need to discuss, and it's something that's often misunderstood, sometimes even feared and frequently neglected for obvious reasons. It's the discipline of fasting. So I want you to imagine something with me. Picture an old analog radio. You've just received an urgent message that you need to transmit. It's a life or death situation. But when you grab the receiver, all you hear is crackle, hiss, and static. You can't send your message, and you certainly can't hear a reply because the channel is clogged with interference. What's the first thing you do? You don't shout louder into the microphone. You reach for the tuning knob. You carefully, intentionally twist the dial, listening closely until the static fades and the channel becomes crystal clear. Only then can you make the call. In our spiritual lives, fasting is that tuning dial. It's the intentional act of clearing the channel before we send the call. It's how we silence the static of our world and our own flesh so we can hear the voice of God with clarity. The Bible has a lot to say about this. In Matthew chapter 6, Jesus assumes his followers will fast. He doesn't say if you will fast, but when you fast, he instructs, do not look somber as the hypocrites do, but when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that it will not be obvious to others that you are fasting, but only to your Father who is unseen, and your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you. Um, if you want a great picture of that, think about Daniel. Daniel participated in numerous fasts if you read through the book of Daniel, but never did you ever hear or did you ever see any recording of him looking down because he was fasting or anything like that. He always made sure the Bible even says in that particular book that he washed his face and made sure that he made himself look presentable to the people as he did his fast. So very important that we understand here the first point, principle of fasting, or just the first point, the whole gist of it. It's not for you to gain pity from other people. This is something that is a relationship thing between you and God. So the minute it becomes something that you want to use to show off to other people, like, hey, I'm fasting, I'm fasting, I'm fasting, you've already lost the entire essence of it. It is something that is a secret relationship between you and the Father, right? And this brings us to what we're talking about in terms of audience for our fasting. It's an audience of one. It's a secret transaction between you and the Father. The reward isn't what you get from people's admiration, it's what you get from God's attention. So, what is fasting? So, I'm always going to go through Hebrew words, Greek words to kind of get a better understanding, more depth of knowledge and understanding what the word is. So, the Hebrew word for fasting here is psalm. It's spelled TSO with a little line on top of it, and then M, which literally means to cover the mouth. It's a voluntary silencing of our physical appetites. And then the Greek equivalent, nestea, which is spelled N E with the little line on top, STEIA, points to the result, abstinence and emptiness, a hunger. But here's the most important clarification we need to make. Fasting does not twist God's arm, it tunes our own ears. It's not a spiritual hunger strike to force God's hand. It's a humble act of self-denial to sharpen our spiritual senses. We are telling our bodies, our schedules, our cravings, and our distractions, you will be silent for a moment. You are not the loudest voice in my life. I need to hear from my Father. We are intentionally creating a void, an emptiness, so that the Holy Spirit has an empty space to fill. Perhaps the most powerful example of this is in the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah is serving a high ranking position in the palace of the Persian king, Xerxes. He's comfortable, he's secure. Then his brother arrives with devastating news from Judah. The survivors back in Jerusalem are in great trouble and disgrace. The wall of Jerusalem is broken down and its gates have been burned with fire. What is Nehemiah's immediate response? Does he draft a 12-point plan? Does he start a fundraising campaign? Does he immediately rush into the king's throne room with a request? No. If you take a look at Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4, it tells us his sequence. When I heard these things, I sat down, I wept. For some days I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. So did you catch the order? Or don't even worry about the order, just the fact that he mixed fasting in there. First, it was weeping, mourning, fasting, and then praying. He didn't just pray. He prepared himself to pray. He cleared the channel. He knew the request he was about to make to petition the pagan king to let him go and rebuild the wall of his God. It was such a massive request, so audacious that he couldn't just go into it with just any static. He needed a pure, direct line. He dialed in his focus by fasting, silencing the noise of the palace and the ache of his own stomach to amplify the signal of God's guidance. And what was the result? After this period of fasting and prayer, he receives a divine strategy and walks into the throne room with such supernatural favor that the king not only grants his request, but also provides the resources for the entire project. Access granted. This connects powerfully to a mysterious and potent statement from Jesus in Mark chapter 9. After the disciples failed to cast out a particularly stubborn demon from a boy, they asked Jesus why they were powerless. He replies, this kind can only come out only by prayer and fasting. Some translations omit and fasting, but many ancient manuscripts include it, and the principle still holds true. Some obstacles, some spiritual strongholds, some situations are so deeply entrenched that a quick casual prayer just won't cut it. The kind of breakthrough that seems impossible, the kind of generational chain that won't break, the kind of mountainous unbelief in our own hearts requires a deep level of consecration. It requires us to clear the channel, to sharpen our spiritual authority by putting our flesh in its place. Fasting was the precursor that would have cleared their unbelief and dialed in their focus. This is where our modern illustration comes in handy. Think about your smartphone. The battery is critically low, but you desperately need it. You desperately need it for one more call or use it for GPS. What do? You put it in low power mode. The screen dims, background apps refreshes stop, automatic downloads cease. The phone intentionally shuts down non-essential functions to preserve all its remaining energy for the critical task. Fasting is spiritual low power mode. We intentionally shut down the non-essential apps of the flesh, the constant scrolling, the compulsive snacking, the background noise of entertainment to preserve our spiritual bandwidth for what is truly critical, hearing from God. But here's the vital warning on this practice, and it's found in Isaiah chapter 58. God, through the prophet, rebukes the people for fasting with wrong motives. They were abstaining from food, but they were still exploiting their workers and fighting with one another. Their fasting was a religious performance, and God was not impressed. He then defines the kind of fast that gets his attention. Is it not this kind of fasting I have chosen, to loose the chains of injustice and untie the cords of the yoke, to set the oppressed free and break every yoke? Is it not to share your food with the hungry and to provide the poor wanderer with shelter when you see the naked, to clothe them and not to turn away from your own flesh and blood? True fasting isn't just about emptying ourselves. It's about what we do with that cultivated focus and sensitivity. A fast doesn't lead to greater compassion, justice, and generosity. A fast that doesn't lead to greater compassion, justice, and generosity is just a diet. Repeat that one more time. A fast that doesn't lead to greater compassion, justice, and generosity is just a diet. The goal is to quiet our own appetite so we can become more attuned to the needs of others and the heart of God for the world. So, how do we bring this into our lives today, right now? So, let me say this first and foremost. Fasting is something that is very unique to everyone and every person. I know my body, right? I know what my body can handle. I know what my body can do. So before I continue, I advise that if you would like to go on a fast, please consult your medical doctor to understand how your body works, to see if your body can handle this type of fast, to see what type of fast you can handle. Because there's so many different types of fasts out there that if you don't know what you can properly handle, if you don't understand your body first, you may end up hurting yourself. So please, before you go on any type of fast, especially if it's a physical fast, a food fast, please consult your medical doctor. But let's make this practical. I want to leave some reflection questions and then some simple concrete action. First, the reflection. First, what appetite in my life, be it food media, shopping, scrolling is creating the most static and cluttering my signal from God? What decision, breakthrough, or area of my life am I currently seeking clarity and direction on? What is my Jerusalem wall? And as I consider fasting, how can I pair it with an act of justice or generosity, as Isaiah 58 commands, to ensure my motives stay pure? And here's something that you can try. As I said before, please consult your medical doctor. I am not a doctor. Consult your medical doctor. Doctors of this modern age are very up to date in terms of what fasting can do for you. Um, Speak to them first. Please speak to them first. But this is something that I usually do. Something that I can do, usually do, depends on what it is, depends on the situation. Um, so in my day-to-day life, when it comes to fasting, I usually try my best to, you know how people usually have breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Well, I usually skip breakfast and lunch. I usually fast for the entire day, no matter what it is that I'm doing, to make sure that I'm not, overly because it can get a little can be a little much sometimes. So it's a lot of tea during the day, a lot of water, a lot of hot beverages, nothing solid during the day. That's my fast. Now, that type of fast is not something that everybody is going to be able to do, and this which is why I'm asking you to talk to your medical doctor. But even if that type of fast sounds a little bit of sounds a bit extreme, you can always do something as small as, if you usually have breakfast in the morning, you can skip that breakfast for a little bit and try to understand that feeling of missing that meal and understand the type of hunger pains that's going to come with that type of fast. Um, if you're not able to do the physical fast, you can try a social media fast. There's other things that you can fast from. But again, if you're going to go and do a physical fast, please, 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 please consult your medical doctor, right? So and during this time, right, you're not just like really doing nothing when you're fasting, right? The whole point is for you to have some type of focus. When you're not focusing on what you're going to eat and what it is that you're going to eat and what it is that you're going to do, whatever it is, you're just living, you're just being. There's something special that happens in terms of your focus. It gives you that time to really focus and really learn about God. So during that time, especially when you know you'll be eating, find a quiet place, set a timer for about 5 minutes or so. Don't bring a list of requests, just sit in silence and listen. What I usually do if I'm going through like a heavy fast, I'm listening and I'm listening to a lot of sermons. I'm listening to a lot of commentary about the Bible. I'm learning and adding and trying to understand the Bible a little bit more during this fast. So while you're fasting, if you choose to do so, make sure that you don't just sit there and you're just thinking about the fact that you're fasting. No, go about your daily life and just include the time that when you were usually eating to look into the word, research something, learn something new about God. That is the time and the place when you're in that fasted mode. That is the time and place that God can really truly speak to you because you're not going to be truly distracted by anything else. And with me, what helps with the hunger as well, when I distract myself with the word, I don't feel the hunger. I don't feel because I'm truly distracted from it, especially if I'm really ingrained into it and it really just caught my attention. Somebody, may say something in a sermon and I might go research it. And in the midst of me researching it, because I decided I'm gonna fast and research and do all these other things, I find out something new about God. So it's a time where you can align your focus, you can sharpen your focus. So if you choose to fast, use the time wisely. Use the time to really set yourself correct, to really work on alignment. And that alignment is really just working yourself through the word, really just researching yourself through the word. So I want to thank you all for listening through. If this has given you a little bit more insight on what fasting is, I didn't go through everything of what fasting is. This is just for you to understand that it's a clearing of the channel. There's something that you need if for you to pray properly, right? For you to really, really get into it, it requires that you need to clear the channel. If you're trying to, say, for example, if you're worrying about the water pressure and you're not, water pressure in terms of your house, and you're not getting proper water pressure, but you're failing to maintain the pipes of your house, then you can't complain about the fact that you're getting low water pressure to your house because you're not taking the time to hire a plumber. You're not taking the time to go in and clean out the pipes when it needs to be cleaned out. So there's no reason why you should be complaining about that. So if you feel like your channels are not open, or you feel like you're praying and nothing is not happening, clear the channel. Clear the channel and really put the intent on focusing on God. Because understand this. Remember, the prayer is not about you sending a request up to God. It's about making sure that you stay in alignment to God. And when you're in that fasted state, and when you make sure that you're fasting in that sense, it kind of puts that support on God. Like, you know what? I can't move. I can't go any further without God putting his hand on this type of fast that I'm doing right now. So, with all that being said, I hope that it gave you a better insight on fasting and to use it wisely. And again, please consult your medical doctor if you are choosing to go on a fast. So, with all that being said, until next time, I ask that you all stay grounded. I ask that you all stay humbled, and above all else, stay aligned with just the word. Thank you.